What happens when you find out a loved one or a parent has come down with a chronic condition or has come down with a condition such as dementia and you need to come up with solutions for them? Who can help? I'm Mark Schmidt with Home Care Assistance of Tucson. I'm here with estate planning attorney Lindsay Glenn of Elysium Legal, who is here to help me solve this problem. Lindsay, thank you for joining me here today.
Thank you for having me, Mark.
Lindsay, when it comes to loved ones and navigating the situation, we often hear the conversation or the mantra, plan about it, talk about it ahead of time. But can you tell us what we need to talk about, how we need to talk about it, what decisions need to come forward in this process?
Absolutely. You need a plan in place. The plan that you put in place includes a plan for your disability, as well as a plan for your death, and a plan for while you're healthy. In your instance, in your examples of these diagnoses of long-term chronic illnesses, having a plan in place for incapacity is key. Having a healthcare directive, a financial power of attorney, a mental health care directive, and a living will sets out who will make decisions for you and what decisions they're allowed to make for you, so that when these diagnoses come, there's less chaos, less panic, and the family can focus on what's most important.
Now, a lot of times, particularly in modern times, we have families that are separated by different state boundaries. And so everybody's thinking different laws, different rules. Here in Arizona, is there any particular rules that we need to be aware of that we definitely need to have in place, or things where if they set these powers of attorney up in Massachusetts, for example, or in Alaska, will those transfer to Arizona?
Technically speaking, yes, they should be valid in any state. The issue we run into is dealing with the healthcare providers that see the documents. Here in Arizona, healthcare providers are most familiar and most comfortable with the Arizona state directives because they do look different in each state. So what I recommend is if you are or you have a family member that spends time in different states, depending on the time of the year, that you have a set of documents of these directives for each state that you spend time in. So have your Arizona directives here in your home in Arizona. Have your Washington state directives at your home in Washington, so that wherever you are at, the healthcare providers will see the documents that they're most familiar with.
I see. And when you talk about these different, like the powers of attorney or a living will, things like that, well, let me ask you first of all, can you differentiate between will and estate plan and talk about what's important of having with either of them or not having?
Absolutely. So the incapacity portion of an estate plan includes a financial power of attorney. It names individuals that are able to pay your bills, deal with the insurance companies, any other financially related things, deal with creditors, sell your house, whatever needs to be done if you're incapacitated. It gives somebody the authority to do that. A healthcare power of attorney names the individual or individuals able to make healthcare decisions for you if you cannot make or communicate those healthcare decisions yourself. The mental healthcare power of attorney names who can make mental healthcare related decisions once you've been declared incapacitated or incapable by a doctor. And then the living will communicates to your healthcare agent or healthcare decision maker your end of life wishes. So if death is imminent, you're terminally ill, you're in a persistent vegetative state, what kind of treatment do you or do you not want? A living will is different than a last will and testament. Okay. And that gets confused a lot. And I wish that they would have picked a different name for living will than living will. A last will and testament has to do with what happens to your assets after you die.
Okay.
A living will gives instruction to your healthcare agent for end of life decisions.
Okay. Excellent. That sounds like solid advice, Lindsay. What can happen if someone does not, for whatever reason, have these documents in place, and they go through the situation of this either diagnosis of dementia or a chronic condition?
If there are no documents in place for decision making during incapacity, then the only real route that can be taken is a court action for a guardianship and a conservatorship for the incapacitated individual. The guardian for an incapacitated individual is responsible for care, day-to-day decisions, where they'll live, what they'll eat, who will help. The conservator is in charge of the finances, so managing the assets, managing the bank account, the income streams, paying the bills. It can be the same person that does both roles. It can also be two different individuals, one handling one side, the other handling the other side. These processes can be expensive to get in, or these orders can be expensive to get in place. They can take a minimum of 4 to 5 months. And the hardest part is that once you're appointed, you're not done. You have to give a report to the court every year about the health and the well-being, as well as every penny that has been spent of that individual's assets. And the court reviews them very closely. And if there are any questions or concerns, the court will call you in for a hearing to get answers. So you are not just appointed and then left on your way.
Okay. And how can families, or I guess even in a situation where someone is aging alone, where they do not have any other family, they don't have siblings, they don't have children, what tips would you have for them in order to make this process easier?
Individuals who don't have a spouse, who don't have siblings, who don't have children, I've noticed over my time in doing this that they're the ones that struggle the most to put a plan in place, and they're the ones that tend to put off putting a plan in place because the decisions are too hard to make. When it comes to incapacity planning, a lot of these individuals don't do it because they're afraid, they don't know who to pick, and they're afraid to overburden their friend or their neighbor or the person at the church, and so they just don't do it at all. What you need to know is that there are businesses, people in town that we call private fiduciary, that can be hired and paid to make decisions for you if you can't do it. It's better to name somebody, even if you have to pay them, than to name nobody and be scrambling for somebody to be able to make decisions for you after the emergency has already happened.
Okay, so time is of the essence, really, everybody. And is it a certain age that people should start having these conversations with one another, or is there a certain time in life that comes up where these conversations should be going forward?
If you're 18 and you're breathing, you need some kind of an estate plan in place. Obviously, the kind of an estate plan that an 18-year-old has in place isn't the same kind of an estate plan that a 45-year-old has in place.
Okay.
But even at 18, your parents can't make your decisions for you anymore. You need healthcare directive. You need a financial power of attorney. And then from there, you need to review the documents every 3 to 5 years to make sure that the people you've chosen and the plan you have is still what you want. So if you are healthy right now and you're listening to this video and you know that you have not put a plan in place, you need to do it as soon as possible. Because if you're healthy, time is of the essence, because you don't know when you won't be healthy.
Once again, sound advice. Thank you, Lindsay. It sounds like a lot of problems can be taken care of with, planning ahead and conversations, just even simple conversations. Letting people know what you want for yourself and finding out what you want or what they want for themselves and such like that. Lindsay, if my parents should have a situation arise where they get a chronic condition or they get a situation where dementia such as Parkinson or Alzheimer's is now in the picture, if they have not had a discussion with me, or let's just say I know that they don't have an estate plan in place, how do I have that conversation with them, or how do I start the conversation, and what needs to be said in order to help facilitate that process?
That is an excellent question. Unfortunately, there seems to be still a social stigma, and I don't know if it's generational or what, I hope it's disappearing, around having a conversation about what happens if I get sick, what happens if I die, and who's handling those decisions, who's managing my estate once I pass away. In reality, the only way the stigma is going to go away is if we do just start being very direct. So the question is, Mom, if you get diagnosed with something like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, which of us 5 children do you want making your healthcare decisions? Mom, if Dad's dead, who's going to pay your bills? Which of us 12 children do you want handling that? By starting to ask the questions, and the parent may, well, I can't make that decision. It's too hard. I love all of you. The parent may see it as, well, you're picking and choosing and favoring one child over another. There has to be a discussion about this. Is not about favoritism. This is about who's able, who's willing, who's skilled to do the job. And there may be pushback at first, but continually asking the question, repeatedly asking the question, I think that they do tend to come around as they realize the importance of it. But if you don't ask the question, you're never going to get asked the question. So asking more specific, who do you want to make your healthcare decisions? Mom, who do you want to pay your bills? Mom, if I'm here and I can't make your healthcare decisions, who's the backup to me? And who's the backup to paying the bills? And when you die, who's going to administer your estate? Who do you want distributing everything, paying your bills then, handling your taxes? Being more specific around those kinds of questions.
Is that a good time as well to bring up if they have made funeral arrangements or pre-planned, or is it sometimes easier when you're dealing with people who have pre-planned arrangements that they're more willing to talk about it versus someone that goes, no, I'm not, no, that's just something I'm not going to approach?
I think those who have pre-planned their funeral and pre-purchased their burial or prepaid their cremation are ones that are generally not afraid to face the reality of death and incapacity. It is more those who are afraid that also aren't gonna jinx it or push the envelope there and talk about and make the prepaid funeral plans. But there's nothing wrong with at least knowing, do you want to be buried or do you want to be cremated? Mm-hmm. Did you and Dad purchase a plot 50 years ago, 6 states away that we used to live in when I was 1? Or can we pick where you're buried? Asking specific questions like that helps to at least gather information, and then over the course of enough time asking enough specific questions, you probably can piece together the wishes and then say, okay, this is what I've gathered is what you're interested in, what you want. Is this accurate?
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. If someone was going to reach out to you, to contact you to get more information, or to use you to set up some of these documents, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
You can call my office. You can send me an email. I think my contact information is going to be in the comments below here. Mm-hmm. My consultations are always complimentary, so there's no charge to come and talk with me and get information. My goal is to spread the word and give information to as many people as possible. So come and talk to me.
Excellent. Lindsay, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate your time. And again, thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Schmidt with Home Care Assistance of Tucson, where we provide care to help people enjoy their quality of life while living safe and independent in their own homes. Thank you much.